Today class discuss about I/O. So, first of all, what is peripheral devices? So, peripheral devices means input-output devices are attached to the computer, also called as peripheral devices. Okay, what is I/O interface? So, input-output interface provide method for transferring information between internal storage and external I/O devices. The peripheral devices are input output devices. Peripheral devices are connected to a computer, need special communication links for interfacing them with the central processing unit, that is CPU processor. The purpose of the communication link is to resolve the differences that exist between CPU and each peripheral devices. So, peripheral devices are electromechanical devices, and processor or memory are the electronic devices. What is data transfer? Data transfer of peripherals is slower than the transfer rate of the processor. Consequently, a synchronization mechanism may be needed. Some data codes and formats in peripheral difference from the word format in the CPU and memory. The operating mode of the peripherals are different from each other, and each must be controlled so as not to disturb the operation of other peripherals connected to the CPU. To resolve these differences, the computer system include special hardware components between processor and peripherals to supervise and synchronize all input and output transfers. These components are called interface units. Interface units. So this is I/O interface. The I/O interface is consists of four devices. Keyboard and display terminal, printer, magnetic disc, and magnetic tapes. These devices are connected to the processor through interface. So the I/O bus is consist of the processor connect peripheral devices through three buses: data, address, and control. The I/O bus consists of data lines, address lines, and control lines. So address lines carry the address, data lines carry the data, and control lines carry the control signals, either read or write. The magnetic disc and tape, printer, terminals, or practically employed any general purpose computer. This magnetic tape is used in some computers for backup storage. Each peripheral devices has associated with its interface unit. Each interface unit decodes the address and control received from the I/O bus. And interpret them for the peripheral and processor. Each peripheral has its own controller that operates the particular electromechanical device. The I/O bus from the processor is attached to all peripheral interfaces. To communicate with a particular device, the processor places device address on the bus, the address decoder that monitors the address lines. When interface detects its own address, it activates the path between the bus lines and device that it controls. All peripheral devices whose address does not correspond to the address in the bus are disabled by their interface. So, the buses are nothing but a group of wires for connecting the multiple devices. The processor places address onto the address bus. Okay, the I/O command, there are four types of commands that our interface may receive. There are classified as control status, output, and data input. The control command. First one, control command. The control command used to activate the peripheral and to inform it what to do. For example, a magnetic tape unit may be instructed to backspace the tape by any one record, to rewind the tape, or to start the tape moving in the forward direction. And second one, status. Status command used to test various status conditions in the interface and the peripheral. For example, the computer may wish to check the status of the peripheral before a transfer is initiated. And third one, output data. So the data output command causes interface to respond by transferring data from the bus into one of its registers. And fourth one, data input data. So the data input command is the opposite of the data output. In this case, the interface receives the item of data from the peripheral devices and places it in its buffer register. Okay, this is about the I/O bus and interface modules. And next one, I/O bus and memory bus. So bus is nothing but group of wire for connecting the multiple devices. Okay, I/O bus and memory bus. There are three ways the computer buses can be communicate with memory and I/O. And I/O bus is used for information transfers between CPU and I/O devices through I/O interface. Memory bus is used for transferring information between CPU and main memory. So these are the physical organization. The many computers use a common single bus system. So single bus system is used for connecting the multiple devices. Okay, many computers uses common single bus system for both memory and I/O interface units. So use one common bus but separate control lines for each function. Use one common bus with common control lines for both functions. Some computer system uses two separate buses. One bus communicate with memory and another bus communicate with the I/O interfaces. Okay, there are three types of there are three ways the computer buses communicate with memory and I/O. Okay, in first one, isolated I/O, memory mapped I/O. Okay, there are two input-output mapping. In I/O mapping, there are two types: memory mapped and isolated I/O. In memory mapped I/O, single address space for both memory and I/O devices. So the disadvantage of memory mapped uses a valuable memory address space. So the I/O module registers treated as memory addresses. Some machine instructions used to access both memory and I/O devices, and also use single read line and single write line needed. It commonly used. So what are the advantages of memory mapped I/O? It allows for more efficient programming. And coming to isolated I/O. So an isolated I/O uses separate address space for both memory and I/O devices. It uses separate memory and I/O select lines needed. A small number of instructions needed and commonly used. Okay, these are the steps for isolated I/O. And coming to asynchronous data transfer. So in asynchronous data transfer, if the registers in the interface share a common clock with the CPU registers, the transfer data between two units is said to be synchronous. In most cases, the internal timing in each unit is independent from the other. Each uses its own private clock. For internal register, it is called asynchronous. So asynchronous data transfer between two independent units requires that control signals be transmitted between the communicating units. There are two methods used to supply control signals: strobe pulse or strobe control, handshaking. In first one, strobe control, a strobe control supplied by one of the units to indicate to the other unit when the transfer has to occur. In the strobe may be activated by either source or destination unit. And second one, handshaking. In handshaking, a control signal is accompanied with each data being transmitted to indicate the presence of data. Okay. For example, strobe control, source initiated strobe for data transfer, destination initiated strobe for data transfer. In first one, source initiated source initiated strobe for data transfer. The data bus carries the binary information in this diagram, having two units, source unit and destination unit, and also data bus. In source initiated strobe for data transfer, the data carries the binary information from source unit to destination. The strobe is single line that informs the destination unit when a valid data word is available in the bus. Okay, the following figure shows data transfer initiated by destination unit. In this case, destination unit activates the strobe control, informing the source to provide the data. The source unit responds by placing the requested binary information on the data bus. The source unit responds by placing the requested binary information on the data bus. The data must be valid and remain in the bus long enough for the destination unit to accept it. So what are the drawbacks of a source and destination initiated strobe for data transfer? The source unit initiate the transfer has no way of knowing whether the destination unit has actually received the data item that was placed in the bus. Okay. And second one, handshaking. So in handshaking, the handshake method solves the problem by introducing the second control signal that provides a reply to the unit that initiates the transfer. So this is diagram for handshaking, source initiated and destination initiated. Two handshaking lines are data valid, which is generated by the source unit, and data accepted generated by the destination unit. The source unit initiates the transfer by placing the data on the bus and enabling its data valid signal. The data accepted signal is activated by the destination unit after it accepts the data from the bus. The source unit then disables the data valid signal, which invalidates the data on the bus. The destination unit then disables the data accepted signal and system goes into the initial state. The source does not send the next data item until after the destination unit shows its readiness to accept new data by disabling its data accepted signal. The source unit in this case does not place data on the bus until after it receives the ready for data signal from the destination unit. From there, the handshaking procedure follows the same pattern in the source initiated case. And second one, destination initiated transfer. If one unit is faulty, the data transfer will not be completed. Such error can be detected by means of timeout mechanism, which produce an alarm if the data transfer is not completed within a predefined time. The timeout is implemented by means of internal clock that starts counting time when the unit enables one of its handshaking control signals. And next one, asynchronous serial transfer. So asynchronous serial transfer means transfer of data between two units may be done in parallel or serial. In first one, parallel data transmission. In parallel data transmission, each bit of the message has its own path and total message is transmitted at the same time. This means n-bit message must be transmitted through n separate conductor path. So, what is advantages of parallel data transmission? It is faster and used for short distance and where speed is important. What is the drawback of parallel data transmission? It requires many bytes, many buses. And coming to second one, serial data transmission. The serial data transmission means each bit in message is sent in sequence one at a time. This method requires the use of one pair of conductor or one conductor and command ground. So what are the advantages of serial data transmission? It is less expensive. It requires only one pair of conductor. It is used for long distances. What are the drawbacks of serial data transfer? Serial transmission is slower. So serial transmission may be synchronous or asynchronous. In synchronous transmission, two units share a common clock frequency and bits are transmitted continuously at the rate dedicated by the some clock pulses. So asynchronous means in asynchronous transmission, binary information is sent only when it is available and the line remains idle when there is no information to be transmitted. So in serial asynchronous data transmission technique used in interactive terminals, it employs special bits that are inserted at both ends of the character code. With this technique, each character consists of three parts: start bit, character bit, and stop bit. Okay, start bit is always 0 and is used to indicate the beginning of the character. And stop bit is always 1, is used to indicate the beginning of the character. Okay, the transmitted character can be detected by the receiver from the knowledge of the transmission rules. In first rule, when a character is not being sent, the line is kept in the one state. And second rule, the initiation of a character transmission is detected from the start bit, which is always 0. And third rule, the character bit always follow the start bit. And fourth rule, after the last bit of the character is transmitted, the stop bit is detected when the line returns to the first state for at least one bit time. So using these rules, the receiver can detect the start bit when the line goes from 1 to 0. 1 to 0. And coming to three different transfer modes. The next concept, there are three modes of transfers between processor and peripheral devices. One is program controlled IO, interrupt initiated IO, direct memory access. And first one, programmed IO. In programmed IO method is particularly useful in small low speed computers. An example, for example, data transfer from IO device through interface into the processor. First of all, the device transfer bytes of data one at a time as they are available. When byte of data is available, the device places it in the IO bus and enable its data valid line. The interface accept the byte into data register and enable the data acceptor line. The interface sets a bit in the status register, and the device can now disable the data valid line, but it will not transfer another byte until data acceptor line is disabled by the interface. Okay, for example, whenever program is returned for the computer to check the flag in the status register to determine if byte has been placed in the data register by the IO device, this is done by reading the status register into processor register and checking the value of the flag bit. If the flag is equal to 1, the processor reads the data from the data register. The flag bit is cleared to 0 by either CPU or interface. Once flag is cleared, the interface disable the data acceptor line and device can then transfer the next data byte. The transfer of each byte requires 3 instructions. One is read the status register, and second one is check the status of the flag and branch to step 1 if not set to set or to set step 3 if set. And third step, read the data register. Okay, this is program controlled IO. And coming to second one, interrupt initiated IO. Interrupt initiated IO. The programmed IO is a time consuming process. So in order to keep processor on a busy state, introduce an interrupt, a special command to inform the interface to issue an interrupt request signal to processor when data are available from the device. In the meantime, the CPU or processor can proceed to execute the another program. When the device is ready to transfer data, it generates a interrupt request to the computer. When there is a external interrupt signal is generated, the processor will stop to execute of the original program and branches to the service program to process the IO transfer and then return back to the original program. The processor responds to the interrupt signal by storing the return address from the program counter into the memory stack and then control branches to the service routine that process the required IO transfer. So the way processor chooses the branch address of the service routine varies from one unit to another unit. There are 3 methods for using this: vectored interrupt, non-vectored interrupt. So in vectored interrupt, the source interrupt supplies the branch information to the computer. This information is called interrupt vector. And coming to non-vectored interrupt, the branch address is assigned to fixed location in memory. And coming to third one, priority interrupt. A priority interrupt is a system that establishes the priority over the various sources to determine which condition is to be serviced first when two or more requests arrive simultaneously. It also determines which interrupts are permitted to be interrupt the computer while another is being serviced. Devices with the high-speed transfers such as magnetic disk are very high priority, and slow devices such as keyboards receive low priority. In this concept, we are using polling concept. So polling means polling procedure is used to identify the highest priority source. Highest priority source. This is hardware implementation of priority interrupt. So this is daisy chaining priority. So in daisy chaining method, for establishing the priority consists of serial connection of devices that requires the interrupt. The device with the highest priority is placed in first position, followed by lower priority devices up to the device with the lowest priority, which is placed last in the chain. All the devices are connected in the chaining form. So the last device is connected to the first device. The interrupt request line is common to all devices. It forms a wide logic connection. If any device has its interrupt signal in the low level state, the interrupt line goes to the low level state and enable the interrupt input in the CPU. When no interrupts are pending, the interrupt line stays in the high level state and no interrupts are recognized by the processor. The CPU responds to the interrupt signal a request by enabling the interrupt acknowledgement line. The signal is received by device 1 at its PI, that is priority input. The acknowledgement signal passes on to the next device through the PO, that is priority output, only if device 1 is not requesting an interrupt. For example, if device 1 has a pending interrupt, it blocks the acknowledgement signal from the next device by placing 0 in the priority output. It then proceeds to insert its own interrupt vector address into the data bus for the processor to use using the interrupt cycle. A device with 0 in its PI, that is priority input, generates 0 in its priority output to inform the next lower priority device that the acknowledgement signal has been blocked. A device that is requesting an interrupt as 1 in its priority input will interrupt the acknowledgement signal by placing the 0 in its priority output. If device does not have pending interrupts, it transmits the acknowledgement signal to the next device by placing 1 in its priority output. The device with PI equal to 1 and P not equal to 0, that is priority in equal to 1, priority out equal to 0 is the one with the highest priority that is requesting an interrupt. This device places its a priority vector on the data bus. The dicing chain arrangement. Dicing chain arrangement means chaining arrangement. It gives the priority to the device that receives the interrupt acknowledgement signal from the CPU. So this device sets its flip-flop when it wants to interrupt the processor. If priority out equal to 0, both priority out and enable line to vector are equal to the 0 irrespective of the value of interrupt. So if Pi equal to 1 and P not equal to 1, that is priority in equal to 1, priority out equal to 1, the vector addresses is disabled. This condition passes the acknowledgement signal to the next device through priority out. Okay, this is about the priority interrupt daisy chain. And next one, DMA, direct memory access. So definition for direct memory access: removing the processor path, removing the path from CPU and letting the peripheral devices. It manages the memory buses directly, would improve the speed of transfer. The transfer technique is called direct memory access. Direct memory access. During the direct memory access transfer, the CPU is idle and has no control of memory buses. A DMA control takes over the buses to manage the transfer directly between IO and memory. So in this diagram, we are using bus request and bus response. Okay, granted. Can bus request input is used by the DMA controller to request the processor to release the control of the buses. When this input, that is bus request, when input is active, the processor terminates the execution of the current instruction and places the address bus data bus, and read and write lines into high impedance state. High impedance state means the high impedance is act as a open circuit, does not perform any logic significance. When input is active, when bus request is input is active, the CPU terminates the execution of the current instruction and places the address, data, and read writes lines into high impedance state. The processor activates the bus grant output to inform the external direct memory access that the buses are in the high impedance state. Okay. The direct memory access originate the bus request, can take the control of the buses to conduct memory transfer without processor intervention. When DMA terminates the transfers, it disables the bus request line. The CPU disables the bus grant, take control of the buses, and return back to normal operation. The transfer can be made in several ways. DMA bus transfer, cycle stealing. DMA bus transfer is a block sequence consists of number of memory words is transferred in a continuous burst, while DMA controller is master of the memory buses. And coming to second one, cycle stealing. Cycle stealing, it allows the DMA controller to transfer an data word at a time, after which it must return control of the buses to the processor. So next one, what is DMA controller? What is DMA controller? So DMA controller unit communicates with the CPU. The DMA controller communicate with the CPU via data bus and control lines. The registers in the DMA are selected by the CPU through address bus. By enabling the DMA select, that is DS, by enabling the DS, that is DMA select, and RS, register select inputs. The read and write, that is RD and WR inputs are bidirectional. The DMA controller has three registers: address register, word count register, and control register. The address register contains address to specify the desired location in memory. The address bits go through the bus buffers into the address bus. The address register is incremented after each word is transferred to memory. And next one, word count register. Word count register holds the number of the words to be transferred. This register is decremented by 1 after each word transfer and internally tested for 0. And third one, control register. Control register specify the mode of the transfer. The processor initialize the DMA by sending the following information through the data bus. In first one, the starting address of the memory block where the data are available for read or write, where the data are available for read or where the data to be stored for write operation. And second one, the word count, which is number of words in the memory block. And third one, control to specify the mode of the transfer such as read or write. And fourth one, a control to start the DMA transfer. These are the following information through the data bus. The processor initialize the DMA. So this is cycle stealing. The cycle stealing coordinating the activities of all devices requesting memory access and priority system. So what is burst transfer? Burst transfer means a block sequence consists of number of memory words it transferred in a continuous burst, while a DMA controller is master of memory buses. So what is cycle stealing? Is CPU is much more faster than the IO. The processor uses the most of the memory cycles. The DMA controller steals the memory cycles from the processor. So this is DMA transfer. In DMA transfer, first processor initialize the starting address of the memory block and word count and specify the mode of the transfer and control to start the DMA. When the peripheral devices sends DMA request, the DMA controller activates the bus line, that is BR line, informing the processor to release the buses. The processor responds with its bus grant line, informing the DMA that its buses are disabled. The DMA, direct memory access, the DMA then puts the current value of its address register into the address bus, initiates the read or write signal and send DMA acknowledgement to the peripheral devices. When the peripheral devices receives a DMA acknowledgement, it puts word in the data bus or receives a word from the data bus. So whenever peripheral device receives the DMA acknowledgement, it puts word in data bus for write operation or receive word from the data bus for read operation. For each word that is transferred, the DMA increments its addresses register and decrements its word count register. If the word count register it reaches 0, the DMA stops for any further transfers and removing its bus request. It also used to transfer of information between magnetic disk and memory. It is also useful for uploading the display in an interactive terminal. Okay, this is about the DMA.